I think we have to deeply, deeply question whether it is feasible from an engineering perspective to introduce these dilute intermittent sources into a very complex grid. The evidence to date is not good. This has been tried in a number of places around the world.
Give me some examples, eh?
A good example, a very recent example, which required a vote in the House of Representatives of the Californian state legislative body. They voted 157 to 3 to keep their one remaining nuclear plant online. That was an unprecedented vote that took place within the last 3 months. So it's right up to date. In a part of the world, California, which is still connected to nuclear power plants on its extended grid that goes beyond its borders. It has one nuclear power plant left, which was deemed to be essential to the stability of their grid. And they were having increasing problems despite having built very, very large battery resources in stabilizing their grid. Of course, they also have a significant amount of hydro, just like we do. And really the hydro plus the nuclear is saving California from disaster as we speak. Some people who are not being saved from disaster is the German grid. The German grid is almost entirely reliant, since they switched off the gas plants, on the introduction of new brown coal plants. So the German government is currently actually bulldozing a wind farm in order to extract brown coal from underneath the wind farm. It's a sort of supreme irony in a way that a great economy like Germany that used to have tremendous technological foresight is closing companies that are 140 years old so that they can actually try to save those companies for the future. They're literally taking them out of private ownership and back into public ownership. So Germany is really an iconic case of the demonstrable failure of high penetration solar and wind. And it is still connected to places that have nuclear, like Switzerland, and have really high quality hydro, like Norway. But they simply have found that it is impossible to use wind and solar and storage to solve the problem. In fact, 2 years ago in Germany, the Institute for Solar Energy, which is one of the Fraunhofer Institutes, if you think CSIRO in Australia, think Fraunhofer in Germany. They're very similar institutions. They have a single institute that is responsible for developing their solar energy strategy. 2 years ago, they issued a report, a formal report, that said, in one of the graphs, that they had got the estimate of the amount of solar power that they needed wrong by a factor of 50%. Now, that was a cleverly produced graph because what it meant was that they have to build another 100% of the 100% they've already built. Yeah. Now, this is not widely reported, of course, in the Australian press, but it's well known around the world, and it's often discussed, I think, in engineering circles. The essential irrational nature of pursuing high intermittency and high unreliability in a modern economy. In Australia, it becomes even more difficult because we don't have the backup of having other countries around us.
Yeah.
In a way, if we think of it from a state point of view, at the moment what we have is Queensland and the Snowy Hydro scheme essentially backing up all of the other intermittent stuff that we're doing. And as we close the coal plants, we are going to find that is not enough. And in fact, even AEMO concedes and agrees that we will never remove gas from our grid. The AEMO plan out for the plan for the next 40 years or so, at the end of that period, still has 15% high response rate gas plants supporting our grid. That is a de facto acknowledgement that we will never get gas off our grid. And in addition to that, in that year, 2040, the AEMO plan says that 15% of the electricity that's required at any time for the economy will be coming off the rooftops of Australian houses. So you can imagine a situation where if you're not running your gas plants, your house becomes a supporting element in keeping the rest of the economy going. your electric car has been discharged overnight when there wasn't enough electricity. And because you have solar panels on your roof, when they switch on in the morning when the sun comes up, you're allowed to use just a trickle charge to your house because AEMO will own priority over the dispatchability of your own electricity. This is in a plan which is published and accepted by the government. It's just that nobody reads it.